Hello and welcome to episode 2.3, the High Holy Days edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. As this podcast is released, the Jewish New Year holiday of Rosh Hashanah has just passed, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is on its way. The Jewish people celebrate their New Year, the year 5783, at harvest time, signaling the end of the growing season and the beginning, or head, of a new year to come. It is also the birthday of the universe, the day God created Adam and Eve. These are the days of awe, and as Yom Kippur arrives, a 25-hour fast takes place to cleanse the heart and soul from the past year's sins and to prepare for a fresh, clean new year. Autumn is an awesome time in many ways, as the trees begin to burst with color and the temperatures become mild and crisp. Grapes, apples, and squashes are all ready for picking, giving us grape pie, fresh apple cider, and pumpkin spice, you name it. I even saw a sign for pumpkin spice pizza. While I am sure that was a joke, still, you never know when it comes to pumpkin spice. The fiddle has always been an instrument that has been at the center of harvest celebrations, along with stomp-style dancing of all sorts. The 1891 Fredonia Opera House is getting in on this action by bringing in the Fitzgeralds, a well-known Canadian fiddle and step dancing trio consisting of two sisters and one brother. I had a chance to talk with Tom Fitzgerald about how he and his sisters got started as a family act.
Well, I think it's fair for me to say that I have Canadian fiddle royalty here on the podcast coming up because I'm talking with Tom Fitzgerald of the Fitzgeralds. He is a 2012 Grandmaster Fiddle Championship and a 2012 Canadian Open Fiddle Championship. So this guy can play. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for that beautiful intro.
You're welcome. You earned it. So you are the brother, and you have your two sisters, Julie and Kerry, and you've got a family act, the Fitzgeralds, which is all of you play the fiddle, all of you step dance, and you play other instruments as well, of course. But I'm going to ask one question because I find this interesting about Canadian fiddle music. It seems to be a family affair when you look at all of the great fiddle groups, and a lot of it is they're all families. They're all related, cousins, brothers, sisters. Is that a thing in Canada?
No, but I mean, I do know a lot of families that do play this music. I'm not sure why that is, but we grew up about one of our biggest influences growing up was the Leahy family. They were about an hour away from us in Lakefield, Ontario, and they're a big family, all great musicians. And there's countless other families and younger ones coming up now that kind of remind us of us when we were that age too. And I'm not sure what it is about this music. It is very like sociable music, and it was originally like the old time music that we grew up playing as dance music, and so I think it's just really conducive to collaborating amongst family members, and it's cool.
Well, let's talk about just from the beginning. How did you get interested in this music? I'm sure it was probably all around you when you were growing up, you and your sisters.
It actually wasn't, I would say. I mean, um, at least not like directly in our family. We had no sort of history of playing this music until our parents were from a small town in Bancroft, Ontario. We're about 3 hours northeast of Toronto, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's like a hotbed of fiddling and step dancing, but we're certainly kind of on the perimeter of what's called the Ottawa Valley, and that was like sort of a um, kind of in its day, it was kind of the hotbed of this kind of music. And I think we just kind of, our parents sort of fell into this kind of by
Mhm.
accident, I think, as probably a lot of people do. And there was a local fiddler in our town who kind of got them first made them aware that this music existed. I think they were obviously like aware of like the Don Messer show growing up, and I think they'd seen it, on TV and everything. But as far as like getting their kids involved in it, it was just kind of, I think certain people came into our lives at the right time to sort of introduce us and encourage us. And so we started going to fiddle and step dance competitions. That was kind of how we learned this music. Actually, it was kind of ironic, but it's like it was through that lens of like competing that we kind of learned more about the music and then kind of honed our skills. But I would say that's kind of where it started for us. But
When you look at the style of music that you play, which is a very much Celtic, but the Ottawa Valley was famous for its Celtic influence, its French Canadian influence. There's so much blend in there, and then of course you throw in a little bit of American bluegrass and so on and so forth. I mean, do you characterize your playing in any specific way, or are you just feel like you're open ended in that style?
I think some people are uh, as opposed to me. Like I think some people are a bit more rooted in in that tradition. I find it hard to distinguish like what I'm playing anymore. Some people are more kind of have maybe looked into that deeper or understand it better. But for me, I've always just been like attracted to like the sounds that I enjoy, and I've always just been that type of person to seek out anything that kind of um, caught my ear, sort of. But I think in terms of like what our band does, I think it's very much a melting pot. I think we grew up playing kind of strictly old time music and kind of got our sense of it from that, and then kind of later on moved into like Celtic music, Irish and Scottish and Cape Breton music, and then kind of the American folk music and fiddle music came after that for us in our like late teens. So I think we had like phases of like kind of studying each kind of intentionally. And then now it's just sort of, it's almost looking back, it's almost hard to even see the lines anymore. It's kind of, and I think a lot of players from our area of Ontario too, people we grew up playing with and our peers, I think a lot of them feel the same way where it is so eclectic now. And there's like so much exposure to like every kind of music out there. So I think I'm probably not the only one that finds it hard to like distinguish between them anymore, which is something I do. I've been studying a lot of like Irish traditional music, and
Mhm.
it's been pretty inspiring, like seeing how understanding of their history and their culture that those players are. They're so rooted in like one thing, and even younger players, like it's something I sort of look up to now, is like kind of digging back into like where this music came from. And I'd say I'm like definitely more interested in learning about that now than I was, growing up. I just wanted to learn the next cool thing. But yeah, it's hard to put your finger on it though.
It is. I mean, I agree with you. I find that when I listen to a lot of the Cape Breton, Ottawa Valley style playing, I can always pick out something that comes out. I can pick out anything from Celtic to Zydeco and to jazz even occasionally. And it's such an incredible melting pot that produces such a vibrant and exciting sound. And I think that's one of the most you know. interesting and exciting things to me about the fact that you guys are coming to, our little burg of Fredonia here to bring all of that to us. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I actually didn't even know Fredonia was a place. So I guess I've been in that part of New York. So, but I should know that. I'm living in Brooklyn right now, so I'm not super far away. But it's yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to. It looks like a really cool historic venue too. So we always love playing music in places like that too. So.
Yeah, it is. It's a very nice place. I think you're going to like it. Let's talk a little bit too about the step dancing that you and your sisters do. That's another. You have sort of a hybrid style of step dancing from that region. It's not quite, classical Irish step dancing that's rather stiff and solemn, but it's more open step dancing where the moves are a little bit freer in a sense, and it's really quite intense.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to maybe what I was saying about like the almost not being rooted in one style. We're sort of, I think maybe that's why we're free to like kind of break a lot of rules almost, like say like you're saying with like the freedom of movement. It's like, I don't think as dancers we weren't in this type of dancing, we were never really instructed to do anything specific with our arms. It was just kind of, which some people, certain traditions might look at that and be like, no, your arms have to be rigid. And I think it's just kind of like a factor of like where we grew up and where that music and dance developed. It just kind of, because it was a melting pot, there was like, maybe there weren't as many, there are more opinions about maybe how something should be done. So just be kind of involved into this like really free, I think of it as that. It's like, it's a very, free form of dance where you can line up 10 different dancers and they all have a very different approach. Like my sister Julie is very influenced by a lot of tap dancers, and so if you see her do a routine, it's very like intricate and there's like so many subdivisions in a beat, and she could write it all out for you too. And whereas like someone like me is a bit more of a like, I'm just kind of a straight ahead, yeah, nothing fancy kind of dancer, but just kind of and then there's like someone, I don't know if you know, like Dan Stacy. I met him or saw him at a festival a couple of weeks ago in Canada, and he's kind of bringing back this old like Donnie Gilchrist style of dancing from 50s and 60s, and it's very, very different from what you see now, but they all kind of come from the same place. But yeah.
Well, I really should take the opportunity to mention to my listeners that your sister Julie is not only also a two-time Canadian Grandmaster Fiddle Championship, but she is also a two-time Open Step Dance Champion as well. And we won't forget Kerry. She was a Grandmaster Fiddle finalist and an Ontario Open Step Dance champ as well. So, you guys are no slouches. I mean, you guys are out there winning awards for the work that you do.
I know me and Kara are always trying to catch up to Julie. Yeah, she had a pretty remarkable competition career. She doesn't compete as much anymore, but yeah, she's crazy.
Yeah. Does she do the choreography for you guys?
For the dancing,
Yeah.
I would say probably both the girls, Julie and Carrie, kind of have done most of that, I would say. They just they move me around wherever I need to go. But they were definitely, I think, the brains behind a lot of any dance routines we've put together over the years. And we had lessons growing up as well, private lessons, so we learned from other choreographers. And but it's very much self-directed now, and they kind of lead that, I would say. It's cool though. It is cool, like sharing. Probably our favorite thing about traveling is just seeing how people react to this music too, because it is very unique, and it's kind of a special card to be able to play, to be able to show somebody something so regional too, like that even in other parts of Canada, people are like, what is that? Like, it's like they're sort of same as you. They're trying to put their finger on it, but like it just looks different. Like,
you guys are also very good at three-part arrangements of some very nice, quiet, mellow stuff. And you seem to be getting a little bit more into that, your own music, your own compositions, and your own arrangement. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, man, you've done your homework. You I feel like that's exactly the direction we've talked about before. Like when we have meetings together, we're just kind of like discussing, like where do we want to go from here? And we always seem to come back to like our strengths. And one of them is the fact that we are three fiddle players in a band, which is kind of unique as well, and siblings. We've tried other things, but we always come back to like we have a certain sound with that approach. And so we have been trying to do more three-part violin things, and we all take turns kind of arranging something and bringing it to the group. Yeah, we've always loved arranging those types of melodies. And I'm trying to think. We've got a couple new songs that we've been working on throughout COVID, and a couple Celtic arrangements. We also some more like Bob Wills style, like Texas swing music as well. I'd love to bring a few more of those to the group too, because those have been a lot of fun doing as well. But
I haven't found a Texas swing number yet on YouTube, but I did find a wonderful arrangement of Jutland. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a newer one I arranged during COVID, during that time off. And we'll probably throw that on our next record. But that's an old tune. I first heard of it from an inland piper, Irish inland piper, and that's kind of one of my favorite instruments right now. And so I just try to like arrange it in the style of that instrument almost. And so like two of the violins at the beginning are sort of just doing what you'd hear from the drones of the pipes. So yeah, we definitely like being creative that way for sure.
So let me ask you one final question. I know that you and your two sisters are coming. Are you bringing any side people with you, or is it just the three of you this time?
We're bringing, we generally bring a fourth member, and I think this time we're bringing a friend from home, Kyle Weymouth. He's done a lot of this in the past, and he's a guitar player, and he gets up for a step dance as well at the end of the show. So we'll be joined by Kyle, and he comes from like pretty much the same tradition as us. We met first like at fiddle and step competitions, and we were in the same age category, so we always used to compete against each other. And so it's good that we're on the same side now. But yeah, Kyle's great, and adds a lot to our show, and kind of gives us the freedom to do those like what you're talking about, like with the three fiddle arrangements. Like with us doing that, we need kind of a rock in the back, to hold. He's got a lot of responsibility, I guess, with being the entire rhythm section. But so looking forward to it.
Well, Tom Fitzgerald of the Fitzgeralds, I look forward to seeing you and your sisters here at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. Thank you for coming to our humble little venue and bringing your incredible talents to us. I think it's going to be a very, very exciting show, and good luck to you in all your other pursuits. Maybe we'll catch you doing something else in the next 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for having me, Tom. This is great. And we'll see you shortly, a couple of weeks from now.
A couple of weeks. Yeah. Right. Thanks, Tom. Take care.
If you're into a foot-stomping good time and love the sound of Cape Breton, Ottawa Valley fiddle music, you shouldn't miss this concert. The Fitzgeralds will be at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Friday, October 7th. The concert starts at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $20 for adults, $18 for Opera House members, and $10 for students. Get your tickets online at www.fredopera.org/tickets or by calling the box office at 716-679-1891. The Chautauqua County History Lecture Series is, as the name says, a series of lectures presented by local Chautauqua County historians on some unique aspect of the county's past. Topics have included talks on the Celeron Amusement Park, and the spirits of Lilydale. On Thursday, October 13th at 7 p.m., County historian Michelle Henry will deliver a lecture on the topic of the Chautauqua County Poor Farm, which operated from 1831 to 1961. I spoke with Michelle to get a preview of the lecture and some insights into her process of research and preparation.
With me right now is the county historian for Chautauqua County, Ms. Michelle Henry. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, I'm going to imagine, and I have to admit, I'm probably one of those people who either were dimly aware or not aware at all that we even have a county historian. So can you tell me a little bit about what your role is, what you do for the county?
Sure. So New York State is unique, I think, in requiring that every municipality have an appointed historian. So that was a law that went into effect in 1919, right after World War I, when the state realized that we really needed to document the history of the war and the people who fought. So, and the businesses that contributed to the war effort. So they passed the law establishing a municipal historian's position in every town, city, village, and county. So the position has existed in New York State since 1919. I haven't had the position quite that long.
When did you get started?
I was appointed in 2000, and I had been working at the courthouse as a records manager. So I'm in charge of all the records that the county government holds and files and records. And so it really gave me a great opportunity to get a handle on the different types of historical records that are here. And I really think that's an important part of the historian's job, is to make all of these really valuable for research records available to the public. So that's what we've really tried to do, is to get the historical records organized, indexed, and get the word out about them so that people know they're here and know that we want them to have access.
Are there any kinds of, other than these historical lectures, are there any kinds of other events that your office does or plans or creates?
Yeah, well, we were, we had a big to-do in 2011 when the county had its bicentennial. And that year we had a history fair where we brought together all the different historical organizations and historians in the county. And we did it again 5 years later. We should have done it last year, but because of COVID, we didn't. So yeah, I do public speaking throughout the county. I do occasional articles, for history publications about some interesting things with our local history. So, I'm always available. If anybody's looking for a program, I'm available to speak to them.
Great. Okay, so let's delve into the subject of your upcoming lecture series, which is the Chautauqua County Poorhouse. And again, like most people, I'm sure I wasn't particularly aware of this particular institution. A little research shows me that it's located in DeWittville, way out on Meadows Road, I believe. And I'll bet probably I've passed it any number of times without realizing what the structure is. So can you give us a little background of what the Chautauqua County Poorhouse was?
Sure. So Chautauqua County was established in 1811. And before there was any sort of countywide facility, it was really up to each town to appoint somebody to determine who was truly poor, and then to raise the taxes necessary to support that individual or family. And I just want to mention that the very first budget for Chautauqua County included a substantial portion of funding to care for and bury an indigent individual. So the need to care for the poor has existed as long as the county has existed, and it's existed long before the county. So across New York State, the system for caring for the poor was at the town level, and there were, a lot of inconsistencies in how the towns managed that. And so starting in the 1820s, there was talk across New York State about what could be done to systematize the care, to standardize the care for the indigent, so that we knew they were being well cared for. And so in 1830, New York State passed a law that every county over a certain population size was required to establish a poor farm. And that really was the impetus for us to look for property where we could have a suitable farm. And the idea was that it be a working farm, so that the indigent who were capable of doing some degree of farm labor were put to work. So, and I think a lot of, it's really unfortunate to me that there's a stigma about the poor farm. And maybe that's just because of its name, but it was a really, really important institution for every county, because it was the only social welfare program that existed. So, if it wasn't for the poor farm, a lot of people who might be alive today may not have been here because their ancestor didn't get the care they needed at a time in their life when they needed it.
I understand too. I think that the poor farm also had a cemetery attached to it as well, and that contains a lot of genealogical information for the county.
Well, yes. I mean, people who were at the poor farm, occasionally died there, and family or friends always had the option of coming and taking that person for burial elsewhere. But for people who did not have anyone to take their remains, they were buried at the poor farm. And so that property is no longer owned by the county, except for the cemetery itself, which is still owned and maintained by the county. The record keeping wasn't always consistent, so we really don't think we have a good handle on just how many people are there and what all of their names are. But we do have several small lists, and it's an effort. We've made an effort to keep it maintained, and we've put a monument out there so that when people do approach the cemetery, they know they're approaching a cemetery, because it's not a traditional cemetery. There weren't grave markers. That was a luxury we couldn't afford as taxpayers, was to provide a gravestone for everybody who was a pauper who died there.
So what's been your process in preparing this lecture series? How are you getting all of the facts and the figures? And there must be numerous stories about the place as well.
Well, we're fortunate that the records of the poor farm all still exist. Well, we don't know if all of them exist, but we do have quite a collection of records going back to the very first year that the poor farm was established, because it was a county operation. It was a county government operation. So, and that, the poor farm changed over the years and became what we know today as the Chautauqua County Home, that's located in Dunkirk. So the records were maintained by the poor farm and then by the county home. And when the county sold the county home in 2014, we made sure that we got all those original records. So we do have a wealth of material that we can use to research the institution. It's been written about throughout its history. There was a really nice lengthy summary of the history of the poor farm in 1870 that was published in our Board of Supervisors reports. So we have a lot of different resources we can pull from to help us understand the function of the farm.
And it's your job to process all this. This must be very detailed work for you to put together in a presentation.
Well, yes, a big part of what we do is just preserve the records. They haven't all been scanned. We have finding aids for them, so that if anybody's looking for somebody or just wants to know about the farm during a certain period of its history, we can pull that out for them. So there really is the superintendents of the poor kept daily journals, and we have those. Very interesting.
Wow. What is, can you give us some idea of, like, in terms of the presentation, maybe an interesting fact or a particular interesting story that you found that would might tempt the listener to want to come out and listen to the rest of them?
Sure. Well, we have, there's a lot of touching stories, and, you really have to try to put yourself in the shoes of folks who were living here at different times, and found themselves in need of some assistance. There was one account that I thought was so sad of an infant that was found laying in the driveway of the Poor Farm in February. And it was a newborn, and they took it in, and it happened to be Abraham Lincoln's birthday. So they named the child Lincoln. Had no idea where he came from. And unfortunately, he died a few months later at the Poor Farm. And we don't know for sure, but he's probably buried in the Poor Farm cemetery. And so, you think what a difficult situation the person who left that baby must have been in, to not feel that they could keep the child, care for the child. So we'll probably never know anything more about him, except that they gave him the name of Lincoln Seward for lack of knowing anything more about him.
The building itself, what shape is it in today?
Oh, all of the buildings are gone, which is very, very unfortunate, because the main building, when the facility grew from 1832 as they bought more farmland, they had more people coming to stay there. They built a hospital. So in 1869, they built a new main building, and it was a 4-story brick building. It was absolutely gorgeous. And that's the one that you see in a lot of images when they talk about the Poor Farm. And at the time, it was considered to be one of the most beautiful buildings in the county. So I think that kind of demonstrates how much pride and care the county put into caring for the poor. But unfortunately, when they moved to Dunkirk, the property was sold, and nobody was ever able to find a viable use for it. And so the buildings all started to fall into disrepair, and they were demolished. So there's nothing left at all anymore.
Wow, that is sad, because I have seen those pictures, and obviously I thought perhaps that building was still there, maybe in ruins still, but gone. Too bad. It had a beautiful, the structure was gorgeous. Just the wings, the tower, looks like it had a widow's walk on the top, the roof, and everything like that.
There were porches on the first and second floors on the back of the building that looked out over the farmland. And some of the residents who were moved to Dunkirk from that DeWittville farm lamented, having to leave, because they enjoyed sitting out on the porches and looking at the farms. And they used to sit out there and shuck peas that were grown on the farm. And so, it's sad to think that we had that beautiful structure and we just couldn't save it. So.
And what was the ultimate reason for moving it from DeWittville to Dunkirk?
Well, starting in the 1920s and 30s, it became less and less acceptable to have people doing farm labor. So, some people felt that it just wasn't appropriate to put those folks to work. There were some real disagreements about farm wages. And so the people who were on the commission for the farm component of the Poor Farm didn't want to pay union wages. And obviously the people who were county employees who were working out there expected to be paid union wages. I believe there also was an issue with the state required every poor farm to be within a certain proximity to an accredited hospital. And at the time, Westfield Hospital, which would be the closest one, was not accredited. And so the decision was made to build a whole new facility in Dunkirk.
Okay, and then they just couldn't find a buyer for the building.
Right. Well, it was purchased, and there were plans to turn it into a country club or, do something else of that nature. And the different owners over the years never were able to come up with anything that was profitable.
Well, Michelle Henry, county historian, thank you very much for this preview of your upcoming lecture on the Chautauqua County Poorhouse, and good luck. I think it's going to be a very interesting topic for people to get that look into that sort of rather unique slice of Chautauqua County history.
Yes, and a very important one, I think people should realize.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Sure, thanks.
Admission to Michelle's lecture is free. Donations, however, are willingly accepted. Michelle's lecture will be followed by one given by Wendy Woodbury Strait on the Underground Railroad in Chautauqua on Thursday, November 10th, also at 7 p.m. Here's the arts calendar for the upcoming 2 weeks. The Fredonia Marksonia begins its activities on Thursday, September 29th with a reception in SUNY Fredonia's Reed Library beginning at 3 p.m. Attendees can view the exhibit on display until October 16th and listen to a rendition of Hail, Hail, Fredonia. At 7 p.m. at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House, the Marx Brothers movie Animal Crackers will be screened. The main event will take place on Friday, September 30th, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Opera House. It's the premiere live-streamed screening of Marx Brothers expert Noah Diamond's If You Get Near a Song, Play It, the music of the Marx Brothers. Admission to all Fredonia Marksonia events are free. Check out the September 14th edition of the podcast for a segment on the upcoming Fredonia Marksonia and an interview with Noah Diamond. The Fredonia Symphonic Winds, under the direction of Dr. Kari Pawelski, will present their first concert of the year on Thursday, September 29th, beginning at 8 p.m. in the King Concert Hall. Admission is free. Saturday, October 1st, is the Fall String Festival at SUNY Fredonia. Featured are the Penderecki String Quartet, a premier Canadian chamber quartet. Master classes will be featured in the afternoon, and the quartet will give a concert at 4 p.m. in the Rausch Recital Hall. Admission is free and open to the public. Also on October 1st, the Fredonia Wind Ensemble, under the baton of Dr. Paula Holcomb, will give its premier concert of the season beginning at 8 p.m. in King Concert Hall. Admission is free. The Performing Arts Company, the Fredonia Student Theater Group, will present the musical comedy A New Brain, written by William Finn and James Lapine, in the Bartlett Theater. Show dates are Friday, September 30th and Saturday, October 1st at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday, October 2nd at 2 p.m. Tickets are $5 for the general public, $3 for SUNY students. Finally, the cinema series at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House continues with 3 upcoming films. The first, entitled A Love Song, about 2 middle-aged modern nomads meeting up after years apart, plays on Saturday and Tuesday, October 1st and 4th. Gigi and Nate, which tells the story of a quadriplegic and his unusual service animal, a capuchin monkey, plays on Saturday and Tuesday, October 8th and 11th. Finally, Bullet Train, starring Brad Pitt, is an unusual comedy about an unlucky assassin who meets up with several nemeses on the world's fastest train. Bullet Train screens on Saturday and Tuesday, October 15th and 18th. All screenings begin at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $7 for adults, $6.50 for Opera House members, and $5 for students. You may have noticed that the arts calendar always has a lot of events going on at the Michael C. Rockefeller Arts Center. And for almost 40 years now, the man responsible for running the RAC has been Jefferson Westwood. Apart from his duties keeping the Arts Center humming, he always presents his own series of entertainment throughout the year, and so I took the opportunity to get in a chat with him and see what's on the RAC calendar for the rest of the semester. I'm pleased, of course, to always welcome Jefferson Westwood, the director of the Rockefeller Arts Center, onto the podcast and see what he's got cooking for this fall semester. Welcome, Jefferson.
Thank you for having me back, Tom.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I can't imagine that it would be a a podcast, a fall podcast, without seeing what's going on up at your place. So that's always a good thing. So I know that the upcoming show that you've got, I think in October. What is that?
The first
October
Wednesday, the 5th.
the 5th, October the 5th. That's it. I was looking for the date. October the 5th is the president's own U.S. Marine Band, and they give free concerts all over the country. So I know this one's going to be free too. And why don't you tell us a little bit about them? I actually kind of like this band for reasons I will divulge in a minute, but I want to hear from you first.
Sure. Well, this is one of the bands in the overall Department of Defense. Each branch of the military has their premier band, and we've had them all here before. Many of them have multiple units, like a jazz band and a concert band and a country and western group and a jazz group. But the Marines are the original musical group of the United States military, and they are attached permanently to the White House. They go back to an act of Congress in 1798, and they've been in continuous operation ever since then. They're the oldest continuously operating musical organization in the United States, and many people consider them the musically premier and prestige-wise musical group of all the United States military. And I'm just thrilled that they're coming back. They've been here couple of times before over my tenure here, most recently about 5 years ago, and they tour every fall, but they pick a different section of the country. So they'll go to the Southeast, the South, the Northwest. This is their time for the Northeast. And get this, also on the tour, where they're coming to Fredonia on the 5th of October. You want to know where they go next? Shays Performing Arts Center, and then they're going to the Eastman School of Music, and then they're going to Carnegie Hall in New York City, and then they're going to Symphony Hall in Boston.
Wow.
I mean, we are on the same tour, and they chose us. They have a good time when they come here. They like the hall. They like the way they're treated. They love our audience and the audience reaction they get when they come to Fredonia. So we're now at the point with these groups that I don't have to call them and say, would you please come? They call us. It's just a thrill.
That is great. Yeah. I know that a lot of people love playing at King Concert Hall, and those Marine bands, those military bands are always wonderful. I actually kind of fell in love with the Marine band in particular because they did a series. I think it was during COVID, but they did a series where they recorded all of John Philip Sousa's marches. And a lot of people don't realize, of course, that John Philip Sousa was the 17th director of the president's own U.S. Marine Band.
That's right.
And I listened to almost all of those recordings. And the thing that I love about most military bands, but in particular the Marine Corps band, is their precision. When I heard the Stars and Stripes Forever on YouTube, and I think it was the first time I had ever heard the piccolo solo.
The obbligato.
Played so well and so cleanly.
Yeah, they'll do that. They always end with that as an encore, and the program is quite varied. They're going to do, of course, at least 2 or 3 Sousa marches. That's traditional for them. They're doing some Gershwin preludes. Their opening number is by John Williams, the Star Wars and famous American composer. And there's something for everyone. They're also doing a selection of numbers that's on their program listed only as the Great American Songbook.
Right.
So that is probably some Irving Berlin and maybe some Rodgers and Hammerstein. I don't know the numbers, but will be all stuff people are very familiar with. So they put together a great program, and they're just they're so highly organized. They have great tech people, like they have the best sound equipment, one of the best sound engineers in the country that comes with them. And this is your tax dollars and your listeners' tax dollars at work. Apologize for that ringing number. That's the ticket office. Probably people
calling to get
for
their free
Marine
tickets.
Band tickets,
Absolutely.
and they are free. And people can call our ticket office at 716-673-3501, or stop in at the Williams Center and pick up free tickets. There's no service charge. Usually we have a $6 service charge for a phone order, but that is waived for this particular band, because it is public relations and recruiting for the Marines. It's part of their their presence in the community, but it's also, this is the band that's attached to the White House. So anytime any kind of music is needed at the White House, they provide it.
Right. They played for state funerals. They play for inaugurals. They play for, various others, heads of states coming to visit, all of that kind of stuff. And I think what a lot of people don't think about, even though they're called the United States Marine Band, they're really an orchestra. I mean, they play Schubert, they play Liszt, they play, all of the great composers as well, and they play them very well.
Yeah, the group that's coming here is a concert band, but in Washington they have a group they call the Strolling Strings that will, go, but for a state dinner, a big cocktail party, they'll wander around playing. They have a string quartet, and they have a chorus. They have 130 musicians altogether. 22 full-time professionals working in administration, music production, operations, public affairs, and recording. It's a huge operation. So when this group goes out on tour, if President Biden needs something done at the White House, there's still plenty left back in Washington to take care of that. Yeah. And
they don't abandon him.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes, I really do want to, as much as I possibly can, encourage people to go see this show, because I think they'll be in for a pretty good treat. And if, again, to discourage people from thinking about them as just some kind of band that plays patriotic music, they play all kinds of stuff, and they play it very, 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 very well.
Mm-hmm. No question.
No question. So after the Marine Band comes in October, you've got a couple of other things coming up. I think probably there are two special Christmas shows.
That's right.
They're a long way off, but let's talk about them too, so people can get ready.
Sure thing. And I know you'll be doing an interview with people from your old department with Into the Woods.
Yes.
But excuse me. I will certainly talk about the stuff that Rockefeller itself is bringing in at Christmas time, because we really bring in the outside performers. Mm-hmm. And I'm very excited about both of these. For the family series called the Kaleidoscope series, which has been around since the mid-'80s, we have a group called Cirque Spectacular. They're sort of inspired by Cirque du Soleil. And so they have quite a bit of aerial stuff in their show, but they do a thing called North Pole Nonsense. It has a dancing snowman. It has a big polar bear, people dressed up in a polar suit, in a polar bear suit. And it's sort of all variety of circus skills, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be on Friday, the 2nd of December. And I'm a little surprised we're selling a lot of tickets already. People spotted it in our entertainment guide and are really planning ahead, which of course we like when people do that. Mm-hmm. Then on Thursday, the 8th of December, we have a group out of Chicago called the Four C Notes. The leader of the group played the Frankie Valli role in the Chicago production for about 2 years of Jersey Boys. And so it is essentially a Jersey Boys type group, but they do music not only of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, but other people like Michael Bublé, Dion and the Belmonts and the Drifters and the Beach Boys. So there'll be a lot of familiar Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons hits, plus Christmas music recorded by some of these other sort of artists of that general period. And the name of the show is Seasons Greetings. So we're using the double meaning of seasons there with the Four Seasons and association of seasons at that time of year.
At that time of year. Yeah. I always miss stuff like that. I don't know why, like double meanings and so on and so forth. But that's good. 4 seasons. So two.
And just like the group that we just had, which was the Sounds of Soul, Motown and Beyond, this will have a live band, 6-piece band backing them up. And many of these groups that tour now, you have a group, you have an option as the presenter in a community hall or a college, venue such as I manage, where you can either have the group with tracks, meaning recorded background music, or a small band, like a 3-piece band, or a larger band, in this case, 6 pieces. And I always like to opt for the biggest band, make some work for professional musicians.
Yes.
And, it's possible that on this show, you will recognize some local faces, because typically they'll go out with one band leader, but then hire the other band members locally. It's just more efficient to do that. And the charts are not all that difficult. And they'll have one rehearsal in the afternoon and then do the show that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know that this is really thinking very, very far ahead, but perhaps I might have to do this because I know that the 2023 Commencement Eve concert is the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber, and that sounds like something that people ought to put on their radar now.
Yes, I would recommend that, because I think that's going to do really well at the ticket office. And it's a show we're putting together with Western New York Chamber Orchestra and Glenn Cortese. And the chamber choir of the School of Music, with Vernon Huff as its director, will be in that. We will open with a medley of about 8 numbers from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And then we will also have material in this later in the program from Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita, and of course Phantom of the Opera and Sunset Boulevard. And there's even a lesser well-known show that Weber wrote of Cinderella. And there's one particular nice song from that. And then we'll have Memory from Cats, which frankly, it's not my favorite song, but for a lot of people it is. And he's certainly very well, that's probably one of his Lloyd Webber's signature tunes. So Memory will be in there. And we will have auditions after we get into the second semester. And there will be something like 4 or 6 student singers doing the solos in all of those pieces.
Wonderful. Yeah, I just thought I would bring that up because that's going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
We'll get back to it later on when the event gets a little bit closer. So I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun too. Maybe by then you'll have your cast and I can talk to them about what's going on.
They'd love that.
They would. They'd love that. Anything else you got before we call it an interview?
Well, I'd just like to come back to the President's Own United States Marine Band on the 5th of the first Wednesday in October. It's the Wednesday before October break. If you come to this show, you won't complain so much about your federal tax bill.
Yeah. And you'll also hear some very clean, crisp, well-played music too. I mean, I just love that band.
Yeah.
I really do. All right, Jefferson, thanks. Thanks very much for coming on and giving me some of your time. I do appreciate it. Always like to know what's going on at the Rockefeller Arts Center. It's obviously a significant cultural center for the community in northern Chautauqua County. And let's hope it continues to be for many, many years to come.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay. Thanks, Jefferson. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't miss the President's Own Marine Band performing in King Concert Hall on Wednesday, October 5th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. It's your chance to see your tax dollars at work doing something artistic and entertaining. A rare opportunity these days. And that's it for this High Holy Days edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Tom Fitzgerald, Michelle Henry, and Jefferson Westwood for being my guests on this episode. Notes from the Aisle Seat is a production of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House in Fredonia, New York. For more information on any of the Opera House events, call the box office at 716-679-1891. Visit the website at www.fredopera.org or email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Notes from the Aisle Seat is now available wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and also on the Opera House YouTube channel. If you like this podcast, please consider following us by clicking the follow button on our website at aisleseat.podbean.com and spreading the word through your social media feeds. If you have an arts event you'd like featured on the podcast, why don't you drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org, and we'll see about featuring your event. Please try to give us a month's advance notice if possible to facilitate timely scheduling. If you have any suggestions, comments, or criticisms of the podcast, just drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org. We'll be glad to receive your feedback. Our next episode will be on October 12th, 2022. I'm Tom Laughlin, and until then, be safe out there and be kind to one another.